First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
Samantha Colosimo Testa is asking the question about the county executive, of course. State of the county was the other day, and there was talk of taking all of this federal money that's coming into the cities and to the county and to the municipalities, and really everybody working together with one common goal to better the entire region, as opposed to everybody going off willy-nilly and squandering their money. So Samantha Colosimo Testa is asking the question, what's going to happen with that money? There's a lot of it, by the way. Sam, good morning. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning, guys. How are you today?
Are you depressed over This Is Us, or does This Is Us depress you?
I stopped watching it a couple seasons ago and got a little too much for me.
It is. It is like it's terribly depressing.
How can we make people so depressed?
I'm not too sensitive as it is, and it was just like, okay, enough.
Yeah, I can't see you.
You, Sam? Come on.
You want to knock somebody out, I think, watching that show. Just drive you crazy. Okay. Now, tell me, so where are you going on this? Are you okay with the county executive saying we need to have a strategic plan and all work together?
Well, I think there needs to be a strategic plan in place, and working together is never a bad idea in terms of coming together as a community and seeing what could help one another. But for this particular funding, in my personal opinion, I think the city of Utica should be a little selfish in investing inside the city, because there's a lot of things that need to be done.
Yeah.
But that doesn't say that it can't tie into a regional aspect of trying to come together and seeing what could be done. I mean, if you look at the city's infrastructure, if you look at, our buildings, our neighborhoods, I mean, there's a lot of TLC that needs to be put in place, and I think that this money could be a turnaround for this entire community coming together and revitalizing it.
Are there areas that you would like to see? I mean, off the top of your head, or you're saying in general it should go to these areas that need TLC?
In general, I mean, there's East Utica, South Utica, North Utica, West Utica. I mean, every area needs, its own TLC. Maybe more so in other areas. I mean, even a lot of other areas, like the district I represent, they have a lot of parks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go inside those parks. You can revitalize them. We spent how much money on putting together a park plan. It's time that we take all this investment and plans that we've had and start putting together, put them to life. I mean, that's kind of what you have those plans in place for. And I really haven't heard anything in regards to the funding, knowing that it's coming this week. And we have to spend that funding, and I haven't heard anything. And that's kind of like
I do know the regulations on how you can spend it, I think, just came down within the past week.
Yeah.
It's been forever. I mean, I remember Schumer was here for that press conference at Tivolo.
Tivolo, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
he was very specific in his announcement when he came that municipalities were going to be given the option to spend that funding. I don't know if the term loosely is,
they would have discretion.
Yeah.
They would have discretion on what they can use. I mean, and he was very specific in his announcement when he came here that what municipalities could do. But with that said, I mean, you kind of know what you need. If you can't use that funding for a specific thing that you need, go to something else. It's not like you only need one thing and it's the be-all, end-all. I mean, there's a ton of things that need to go on inside the city. I mean, from infrastructure, road paving. I mean, I just received our schedule for road paving. I mean, there's several roads inside the city that are getting paved. It's just kind of giving the people that transparency that they need to let them know what's going inside the city with the funding that technically is taxpayers. The
only thing I think we have to be careful of is just putting a new coat of paint on something that's ready to fall down. And I think this has to be really thought out very carefully how this money is spent. A good example. And not to be critical of any previous administrations, but for instance, you remember what happened with that Hannah? There was this grant money available. What do we do with the grant money? And all of a sudden, Ed Hannah's gone, and coming into town on a tractor trailer was a giant watering can. Do you remember that?
Right.
And it's like, well, we had to spend the money, so here's how we spent the money. I mean, while I got to tell you, they put good use. It was put to good use. It is up at the zoo, but we did not need a gigantic watering can.
Right. Just because the money had to be used. But I mean, let's obviously it's at the Utica Zoo now, and I take pictures of it in front of it every time I go.
I agree. It's in the Guinness record, I think, record books and all of that. Yeah, but we didn't need it.
And I Google, like, what are other municipalities doing with, their funding, and I see other municipalities putting together, committees, and I see them putting together stakeholders from the community, putting together all their resources, coming up with a plan, and there's a website that I always refer to. It's called the National League of Cities, and they always have recommendations from municipalities. And one of the recommendations was, for example, if you don't need to spend money on this because there's a state grant, utilize the state grant before you're spending that money on something that could be used for something else.
Yep.
So, I mean, all these concepts and ideas, it's not like you have to, be the original person that comes up with that. I mean, there's literally NICOM, National League of Cities, that give these recommendations for municipalities to come together and say, look at, this is how you could utilize that funding. But my problem is that I haven't heard a thing. I mean, that's not like, I'm not reading in the newspaper, I'm not seeing in the news, there's no press releases, there's no nothing. And that's what it comes down to is like, okay, does anybody have any idea what's going on? I mean, knowing that we're getting this money this week, have you put anybody in the community together? Have you put any stakeholders in a room and said, look, this is what we want to do with this funding? I mean, there's been nothing, and that's kind of frightening.
It sounds to me like you're not supportive of the county executive's plan where everybody pools. It seems like he's going down that road.
I mean, and if he has an idea that he wants to utilize that money for, me personally, as a city, know that we'll probably never get the opportunity to get $60 million to invest inside the city. And why other areas in our surrounding area are flourishing, okay, as far as, economic impact and things like that, the city needs a lot of work. And I cannot see us not utilizing this funding to the full capability inside the city.
All right.
If there's an approach that he might have that could utilize those funds to good use, I mean, more power to him, and that's going to be obviously up to the administration and him to work to it. But like I said, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us as a municipality, and this is why this funding was specifically given to cities, because that money was supposed to be given to the city for them to utilize for their constituency.
We got a note this morning that this particular money can't be used for roads. I know you can just always do the old switcheroo, right? We were going to spend.
I don't think you can with this money.
Well, no. So if you had a project that you were going to fund that falls in line, you just take that money out of your budget and switch it over to roads. But this money in particular, we're told, can't be used for roads. And again, the guidelines just came out. I guess we'll see. I'm interested to see how municipalities want to spend this money and what for. I mean, when Schumer was here, I remember him saying something along the lines of, basically, you could, at that time the guidelines weren't known, but he said something along the lines of, you could use it to basically launch an ad campaign to support local businesses. So, like, run, I don't know,
a PR firm. I think the city needs it. I mean, how many people can call Utica for so long? I mean, there's a ton of good things inside this area that are going on that
call it what again?
Some people might know about.
A PR firm.
Oh, Utica.
Yeah.
A what?
Utica. I didn't know that.
She said Utica. Did you ask what
she said? How many times?
Yes.
You did say Utica, like in shoot a gun.
Well, I mean, you see the comments on WKTV and stuff like that, and the dispatch of what people target Utica and call it as.
Right. See, I think why not? In with the time of being, with the economic hardships that the cities and municipalities have faced, I understand certain things are a priority, but why shouldn't that money be used for infrastructure? To do an ad campaign
because they're
promote
working on
local
an
businesses.
There's an infrastructure bill
working on it.
It's coming. Believe me, it's going to be coming.
I mean, and here's the thing. Even inside the city, though, I mean, we're literally on a 15-year paving program that every road should be paved in the city over the next 15 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could utilize, even if you can't utilize that money. It's not like the city doesn't have a plan in place already for that.
Okay, we'll continue this conversation down the road. Let's see what happens, Samantha. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you, guys.
Have a great day. Samantha Colosimo Testa, who is running for Common Council seat at large.